12th, 2021 meeting. With me tonight, I have members of the planning staff as well as several members of the planning board. So I'm just going to do a roll call so we can establish a quorum. Jim Sears.
Present.
Lou George.
Here.
And for the record, Peg Zielinski and Tori Aller are not here. And I'm sorry, and Jean Hartnett, Jean's here.
Yep, here.
So our associate members in attendance, our associate member will be voting on potential special permits that are part of the agenda. We have a large agenda tonight, a lot of ground to cover, especially around the zoning bylaw changes that are being proposed for the special town meeting. Let me just read something into the public record, and then we'll start the meeting. For this meeting, the planning board is convening remotely by Microsoft Teams application as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. A few ground rules. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the lines of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait for the chair to yield to the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with each other, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email address for public comments @danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments, and they will be read out loud after the staff has confirmed the name and address of the participant. All emails must contain the date and phrase planning board meeting in the subject line. Finally, each vote taken this evening will be conducted by a roll call vote. So I just want to go out of order a little bit as I turn to the first item on the agenda. I want to go down to item number 6, and because the civic space zoning district is being amended so that privately owned institutional parcels that were originally being proposed to be in this zoning bylaw has been removed. So I want to just turn it to David or Josh or Aaron, who's on the line, just to briefly talk about that withdrawal. Because I think there was a number of folks that were interested in that particular zoning article who may wanted to participate in tonight's meeting. So, David, you want to?
Sure thing. Yeah. Yep, I can do that. So we've, as this board knows, I think have been making the rounds to multiple town boards, both elected and appointed. Heard some preliminary feedback on the zoning article, specifically with respect to civic space, and determined that, kind of once again this year, the concept I think is ready, but I think it's a little bit too rich, maybe too progressive in what it was proposing. And that's not to say anything bad about the concept of it. It's just, I think it was just asking too much in too short of a time period, to be honest. And so, that being said, we've heard what everybody has said about it. I think we'll probably pull the privately owned institution section out of that, which will put forward just a petition for town, state, or federally owned properties, and then effectively rights of ways or utilities. So things like pumping stations that the town owns and such. So saying that, I think it could use some further study for sure. We'll have to assess after this year's town meeting whether or not the boards would like us to further study that, or if it's just an idea that it was an idea and now it's gone by the wayside. We'll figure it out. So that was it.
That's helpful, David. So we are having another planning board meeting on the 26th of October where the zoning bylaw changes are going to be discussed again. So I just wanted to put that on the table tonight for anyone that may have had an interest in speaking on that particular article. So is there any comments from the board before I go back to the top item on the agenda? Lou, Jim, you're clear of what's going on?
Yeah, I'm clear. I'm glad that that's the decision because I think it was a little premature to put it up to town meeting vote. John, just on item number 1, I am going to have to recuse myself on that. So I don't know if you want to get Tori on just for that simple vote. It's pretty much a formality because I've always recused myself on that. So I think then you would only have 2 voting members. Am I correct?
That would be correct, yes.
So you might just need Tori for that one item, if we could.
Yeah.
Take it out of order if you have to.
Yeah, Nancy, I'm gonna have to take that out of order so I can email him so he can join the meeting if you don't mind.
That's fine. And if that is a problem, we could continue to the next meeting if need be on that item.
Okay. All right, so let me go to item 2 on the agenda. It's 24 Cherry Hill Drive. Request for modification to a previously.
Pardon, John?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I had a question just with respect to civic space.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lou. Go ahead.
Yep, no problem. I just want to be clear on this because I know that as I'd indicated to you last week, just because in terms of based on my being an officer in the Danvers Historical Society, I was going to need to recuse myself from participation or voting in the civic space proposal so it's my understanding now, is that correct? That it's based on planning that so that privately owned or nonprofit properties are no longer included in the civic space article. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my understanding.
That is correct, yes.
So, and the intent, Lou, is that we'd probably as a board vote on these articles at the next meeting, that we'll get to what we can tonight, continue it on the 26th, and then have recommendations going forward and close the public hearing.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would anticipate that I would no longer need to recuse myself from that if considering that the civic space proposal would only include the town, state, and federally owned property.
Right, that would be my understanding too, but I'll let you make that decision, Lou.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Item 2 on the agenda, 24 Cherry Hill Drive, request for a modification to a previously approved definitive subdivision submitted by Abamed Inc. for property at 24 Cherry Hill Drive containing approximately 15.57 acres of land pursuant to rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land, Town of Danvers Planning Board. Said property is in the Industrial 2 zoning district. The applicant is proposing to modify the original subdivision with the removal of restrictive covenant conditions. Assessors map 29, lot 3. So I turn it to the applicant. So Josh, who's going to lead?
Yep.
The applicant?
Sure. I believe from the development team, it would be Attorney Schomer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You could have the floor through the chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For the record, Mr. Chair and board members, my name is Attorney Jesse Schomer of the offices of Rignante Stereo, 401 Edgewater Place in Wakefield. We represent the applicant in this matter, Aviomed Incorporated, with address at 22 Cherry Hill Drive in Danvers. And we have a brief presentation. I'll keep my remarks very brief tonight because I know you have a very full agenda. We have a slideshow that I could put up if the board members would find that helpful.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'll go ahead and put that up right now, Mr. Chair. Okay, can everyone see this?
We can.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Yep, it's on the screen. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, members of the board. So just for the record, the members of our development team who are on the call tonight and available for any questions if anyone has any are Michael Fabiano, Site Civil Engineer of Record. He's with High Point Engineering. Mike Hood, Facilities Manager with Aviomed, as well as Wolf Mueller Hillebrand, who is Abiomed's Senior Corporate Counsel in their Danvers office. As I mentioned before, board members, the applicant tonight is Abiomed Incorporated. They are a biomedical technology company which was founded in 1981. They are the developer of the first implantable artificial heart, and they continue to do their work today on heart pump technology at their headquarters at 22 Cherry Hill Drive, where they have been located for the last 40 years. And so I'll go to the next, the next slide here. If you can see here, this site down below on the bottom of this plan, this is Abiomed's main headquarters. The site in question tonight is this property here, which was recently acquired by Abiomed earlier this year as a means of expanding their operations in the town of Danvers. And specifically, the covenant that we're requesting that the board release tonight has to do with a 50-foot strip along this side, the rear side of the property here. And the reason why we're requesting this tonight, members, is for the purpose of constructing a series of outdoor accessory structures in this area of the site here, which I'll show on the next slide. If I could go to that. Sorry about that. This right here, this is the corner of the site. As you may have noticed on the previous slide, this area here, which is circled in green, this is a large wetland depression. It's a drainage basin in this portion of the site. And this area here, this is an existing crossing through and between this pond and a drainage stream that goes down in this direction here. And the proposal that we have, and we've already been before the Conservation Commission and the Zoning Board with respect to this proposal, is to build an unpaved walking trail that would go back to this portion of the site here and connect to a series of outdoor amenities structures here in this area. And the purpose of this is called a leader reaction course, sometimes abbreviated as LRC. And there are some pictures over here of what these structures are proposed to look like. What this is it's a series of structures that's designed for use by Abiomed employees as a team building and a leadership training exercise. And the way that this works is that members of the Abiomed corporate leadership team would lead in small groups of Abiomed employees out on this course and through these structures. And the theory behind this is developed as an application of military science. The theory of this is that the employees and their leaders who go through this course develop leadership skills and team building skills as they determine how to get through these structures and out through the end of this course. And again, that's called a leader reaction course or LRC. And the 50-foot buffer zone is this line here, this dashed line in the rear of the site here. So if I can move to the next slide, and forgive me, the scrolling is not cooperating with me here. There we go. So the subdivision in question, this was created in early 1980. The site that we're talking about is this area here. It's shown as lots 3, 4, 5, and 6 on this subdivision plan. And this is the creation of the entire Cherry Hill Park office park. Abiomed's main campus is this property here. And the parcel in question was a couple of years later combined by means of an approval not required plan into a single lot here consisting of 3, 4, 5, and 6, now combined into one 15.5 acre parcel. And the buffer zone easement is shown down here in the rear of the site. And that is the restriction that we are requesting that the board release. So the condition in question was created as part of the subdivision approval, and it's shown in highlighted here. which created a 50-foot buffer restricting construction, filling, or any other activity along the westernmost lot line, and such buffer shall be retained in a natural state except on the approved definitive subdivision plan. And it took us quite a bit of research to track this down. This condition was a bit of a mystery because previous plans, including this approval not required plan, had given the impression that this was a private easement between private parties. As it turned out, with a little research, this was uncovered that it was actually, in fact, a condition of the planning board's approval of this back in 1980. And the reason for this condition, we believe, is out of concern that the property to the rear of the site, which today is developed as conservation land, there was a concern that that would be developed with residences, and there was a desire to have a 50-foot buffer zone between the industrial development on the subdivision site and potential future residential development on the adjacent site in the future. As it turned out, the adjacent site, as I mentioned, was acquired by the town as conservation land. It's now parkland, and there's trails back there. So there's no concern anymore about residential development. And moreover, as I mentioned previously, the proposal that we have for you tonight is to develop this 50-foot buffer area with only some outdoor amenity structures in the rear. It's not proposed to be used for any commercial or industrial use. So the proposal tonight, and what we're requesting from the board, is to make a minor modification of the original subdivision approval of 1980 to strike condition 6C from that approval. And the board has authority to do that under General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81W. In terms of the benefits of releasing this condition, we would respectfully submit that releasing this condition would have no adverse effect on any of the neighbors, because, as I mentioned before, the reason for the condition is now, it appears to be moot, as well as the effect on the site itself. Releasing the condition would allow the LRC task stations to be installed in the most optimal locations. And those locations that were shown on the plan that I put up just a moment ago were chosen for a reason. And the reason is, well, it's threefold, I should say. First of which, it would allow those structures to be kept outside of the wetland resource area, and specifically the no-build area under the local Town of Danvers wetlands bylaw. Additionally, the sites for the stations themselves have been chosen because they would avoid impacting significant trees, as well as allowing the stations to be located in a place that would not require significant grading, both for the station and for the path connecting them. So really, the stations and their locations that we showed for you tonight were chosen to be the least environmentally impactful, the greatest utility of the LRC path and stations themselves, and we believe would have no effect on the neighbors, which in this case are town conservation land, and the other side of the site is the rear of the Beverly Regional Airport. So thank you very much, board members. That concludes my presentation tonight. I'm available for any questions if anyone has any, as well as the members of my team who I identified previously.
Okay, thank you very much. Jim, I'll start with you.
Wow, I guess I'm getting kind of old. In the old days, we would just have a weight room and a treadmill, but are you going to be having any American Ninja Warrior competitions on site?
Great question. Absolutely not. This is purely for Aviomed employees and their leaders. It's expected to be used seasonally. It obviously, when it's there's snow on the ground, they probably can't get back there to use those. But while the weather allows, they do plan to use those year round, several times a month. But no proposal for American Ninja Warrior.
All right, I'm fine with it, John. I don't have any problems with it. I think it's fine.
Great.
What they're
Jean?
doing.
It looks like there are a lot of trees in that area. Are you going to be clearing a significant amount of trees?
No, Ms. Harden, the locations of the stations in the path were actually chosen specifically to avoid that. And I've been out to the site myself, and I've seen the stations are actually flagged with the limits of the structure and the frame that they'll be installed in, and they're very carefully positioned to avoid any significant trees. There will be a small amount of clearing, just of brush and small saplings and things of that nature, but no significant trees that I'm aware of will be impacted.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Lou?
Yeah, just a question, just in terms of the, so in terms of removal of the condition, I guess 6C from the, from the subdivision approval, I guess that just the question I have, obviously this is, you're seeking removal of this for this, leader reaction course. I guess the one question I have is that by removing this provision, I guess, is there, and this may be a question for staff as well, is there any concern that there could be further development that this original restriction was trying to prevent? So let's say the leader reaction course, doesn't, it only takes place for a short period of time, and then should we be concerned about subsequent development there?
I can answer that, John. This is David, or
Go ahead.
Sure. So Lou, to answer your question, there's still the setbacks required by zoning for the lot. The 50-foot restriction was a specific restriction placed on the deeds of those properties, as the original decision says. So if it's lifted, there's still the original zoning setback, and the variance request to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which was granted, is specifically worded only to apply to the leader reaction course. We were trying to, come up with exactly like what you're saying here. So it's for the reaction course. It's not for another expansion of a much larger building.
Okay. Okay. Very. I think that seems to answer my question. Does the applicant have anything further to say on that as well?
No, sir. Nothing further. There's no proposal to develop back there. Certainly not to construct any buildings. In addition to the zoning setbacks, we're also constrained by the wetlands in that area. So it's really just to have an amenity space for the employees, and that's all it is.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I don't have any concerns. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. I just want to let everyone know Tori Adlet has joined so that we can address the first item. Tori, I don't know if you've been listening in for this item. Did you have any questions? We're on 24 Cherry Hill Drive.
Yeah, I have the same concern as Lou, but it seems like that's been addressed, so I'm okay with this.
Okay, great. Thank you. My only question, and since we have the town listening in, what is the leader reaction course? Is this like an outward bound program? Is this, when you say team building, can you just maybe fill us all in that maybe not familiar with that particular leadership program?
Sure. So the idea of it, the concept is that someone from Abiomed's corporate leadership would get training in how to operate this course, and they would take small teams of employees, probably 10 or so, out through this course. And it's, as I said, it comes from military science, and that's really the idea of it. So you have to, I think you imagined, a small group of trainees at a military academy or a boot camp out there and building team skills and learning from their leaders, and the leaders in turn are learning how to lead small teams of their employees. And that's the idea of it, is really that, with that exactly in mind.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I don't have any other questions. I'm supportive as well. But let me turn it over to see if anyone from the public has a question or comment for the applicant. Josh, go ahead, Mr. Duggan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. So just a follow-up to Mr. George's comments, and Mr. Fields as well regarding the setbacks. So the structures did get a variance from the ZBA, but I think Tory had mentioned that he was concerned about development. So we know that parking areas can go right up against the lot line, which I think is a stone wall. So what's to prevent that from happening? Because there's already parking lots all along that side of the Proctor Farm Conservation Area. So is there a way to do some type of condition to prevent any activity within that setback on that side?
Through the chair, I'm happy to answer that.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Duggan. Just practically speaking, I would say there's no ability to put parking in that area because it would require a significant wetland crossing and an expansion of the crossing that's there now, as well as significant paving, obviously, in that area. And there's no room for it to be put up in that portion of the site. Additionally, there's plenty of room around the site, so I think if they needed to add parking in the future, there are preferable locations that it would go rather than back in this corner of the site, which is really it's untouched woodlands at this point. That's really not accessible to vehicles. So practically speaking, I would say there's from our perspective, there's no concern of development with something like a parking lot, certainly not a building, and there's no proposal from us to do that.
All right, I'm still concerned because you're removing this covenant, and it's kind of there's no real protection other than maybe some zoning a setback that we know are often reduced due to some type of some type of hardship. So I'm just concerned about that. That's the town-owned conservation area, and we should do what we can to protect that. We don't want any more parking areas. There's already further down the street there, I think at 18-22, there's already areas where the parking is very close to the stone wall. And so I'm just concerned that down the road, years from now, someone will find a way to kind of, circumvent what Mr. Schomer has just described. That's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public, Josh or David?
No,
Does not look like it.
Not that was expressed to me prior to the meeting.
Okay. Lou, I see that you have your hand raised. Do you want to still talk on this matter, or was that from a prior?
I think that might be from a prior one. I'll make sure I will lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, just for clarification, since the town of Danvers is the abutter of the property, who technically speaks on behalf of the town of Danvers if they're in support of it? Would this be the planning division?
It wouldn't be us as staff. I mean, the selectmen, actually, that land, I think, is technically owned by the Conservation Commission, and Mr. Schomer and the applicant have been before the Concom, I think, at least 2 nights. So they received a negative determination of applicability, meaning that the Conservation Commission didn't find what they were doing objectionable for their course. But I understand where Mr. Duggan is at. If you do go out to the site, though, I think topographically and due to some ledge and significant wetlands, you probably wouldn't put a parking lot there. As Mr. Schomer's saying, you'd definitely try to find a different spot. But I get it. It's not to say that it could never happen 100 years from now, but
okay,
it's highly unlikely.
It's helpful, David. All right, since there's no more comments from the public, is there a motion to close the public hearing on this application?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Jean, you comfortable?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote to close the public hearing. So if we can go to the main motion, Jim, do you mind reading the decision?
Sure. Modification of approval of a definitive subdivision plan, October 13th, 2021, on the petition of Aviomed, Inc., dated September 2nd, 2021, and in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81W. The Planning Board of the Town of Danvers voted to modify the approval of definitive subdivision plan of land dated entitled Cherry Hill Park, a subdivision of land in Danvers, Mass., dated February 26, 1980, prepared by Frank C. Jelinas and Associates, 451 Andover Street, North Andover, and recorded at Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds, Plan Book 160, Plan 1, Lot 5, by making the following modification. Removing condition 6C as it relates to Lot 5 and only Lot 5, which reads, the deeds to Lot 5 shall contain the following language. The parcel is conveyed subject to a 50-foot buffer restricting construction, filling, or any other activity along the westernmost lot line, and such buffer shall be retained in a natural state except on the approved subdivision, definitive subdivision plan. All prior conditions of approval shall remain in full force and effect until such time as they are met. Pursuant to the Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81W, this modification shall take effect when duly recorded at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds. Said recording is to be at the expense of the applicant.
Okay, is a motion as presented by Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let me turn to a roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So good luck to the applicant.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night. So why don't we go back to the first item on the agenda, Whipple Hill Subdivision, Sandpiper Circle in Carroll Way, request by Whipple Hill LLC for reduction of a performance guarantee for the complete site improvements for the definitive subdivision known as Whipple Hill, assesses map 42, lot 8A. And Attorney McCann, you can have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. And I want to thank Tori for calling in so that we can go forward with this item. The Whipple Hill subdivision has had previously a bond put into place for completion of site work. Most recently, that bond was established back in August of 2019. Since that time, quite a bit of site work has been done with regard to the subdivision roadway and the installation of the municipal services. So we have requested a reduction in the bond. The current bond amount is $149,488. We submitted our estimate of work left to be completed. As is typical, the engineering department has reviewed that and made a recommendation to this board. I believe the engineering department has suggested a bond amount in the amount of $53,050.65. While that is higher than what we believe the amount of work represents left to be completed, we would accept that bond reduction in the amount of $53,050.65. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Tori, why don't we start with you?
I've got to go on the basis of the engineering comment, and I've got no questions.
Lou?
Just a question with respect to timeline. So when would you anticipate, Attorney McCann, in terms of timeline for completion?
Oh, on quite a bit of work has been done since we originally even submitted this estimate, and the developer met with the town engineer today, and we anticipate a significant reduction coming again. So with hopefully by the end of the year,
Okay.
we'll be in a good position on this.
Okay, very good, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions, and I too will we'll rely on engineering comments. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Jean, questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
So my question is more just general, how's the project going? Is there still inventory to be built out at the subdivision, or is the subdivision pretty well built out at this particular point? If you can just let us know, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think the subdivision is pretty well built out at this point.
Great, thank you. I don't have any questions or concerns about the reduction in the bond either. So if you don't mind, can you read in the decision or the motion to reduce this bond as
Can I
presented?
interrupt, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Mr. Duggan, go right ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make some comments because I've been in contact on a regular basis with some of the residents that live on Sandpiper. So I have a punch list here. Let's run through real quick, 5 items.
Sure,
if I
go
may.
right ahead. Yep.
Thanks. Again, Matthew Duggan, Selectman. So the first item is the catch basins, especially along Sandpiper. They haven't really been cleaned out recently. In fact, there's one on Sandpiper at the corner of Carroll that has plants growing out of it. Second is the sidewalks. There's several areas where sidewalks and driveways don't match up. For example, next to the retention pond on Carroll, there's a sidewalk that's 2 inches higher than the driveway. I'm not sure if that number 2 is actually, or that I'm not sure what the address is. Maybe number 4, Carroll. Not, actually, that's not the right number. I'm not sure what the number is, but I don't know if that project has been completed. I know that that's probably one of the newest homes in that subdivision. Number 3 is the retention pond itself. I went on a site visit back, I think, in April with the Concom, and there was significant discussion about how the retention pond needs to be corrected. It's not draining. There's a large amount of water, stagnant water, that attracts mosquitoes, that impacts the people who live close by. So that retention pond is, I think it's going to become a proper responsibility for the town at some point, but in its current state, it's really not acceptable. And I think the cost of remediating that should not be borne by the taxpayers. So the retention ponds are kind of a big deal. Runoff into the cemetery at the end of Sandpiper, where there's a swale, and it doesn't look like, right now it's overgrown, so it's hard to determine the state of it. But the last time I was down there and I looked, one of the residents showed me where it kind of had failed. There was some of that black plastic that had been set up vertically, and it had, at this point, it looked like it was covered up with the gravel. So that's a potential issue there with that culvert and that swale. And then the last item is the water pressure. So residents are telling me they have booster pumps in their basements to bump up the water pressure, which one person showed me it was around 25 pounds of pressure. And they have to use a pump to bump it up to close to 70, because they say otherwise no water comes out of the like in the shower, and for the washing machine. So that raises another question about what the water pressure is out on the street for the fire hydrants. Is there sufficient water pressure for the fire department to in case there was some type of emergency up there? So all important items, I think, especially for the people that live up there. And I don't know what the reasonable reduction would be. That's not really my call, but I think really this is kind of an incentive, right, to get this work completed. I mean, the retention pond, that's 6 months now that since Concom visit, nothing's happened there from what I can see. So I'm sure the board has an idea about what the bond number should actually be, and so I'll leave that up to you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to respond to a couple of those things, although this is not a public hearing on this particular matter. With regard to the retention pond, while perhaps there was a visit back in April, there was in fact a visit last week with the engineering department and the project engineer and myself and the developer, and that retention pond correction, which was the result of a site condition, is being addressed, and that is all under the supervision of the engineering department, as are these the other items mentioned in the checklist. For example, there is a line item for sidewalk grading types of things as well. So all of those items will certainly be addressed, but the retention pond is absolutely under ongoing right now and under review by the engineering department, and a proper stormwater permit has been issued for that work. So that's all underway.
Okay, thank you. And I think for the benefit of the public that may be listening and any residents that are living in that area, the planning board heavily relies on the engineering division of the town on their recommendations of what the proper bonding should be. So if there's concerns, punch list items, as Mr. Duggan highlighted, I think it's important that the engineering division understands the concern. So, and I would assume for our minutes, David and Josh, some of these punch list items can be highlighted for the benefit of the record on this conversation. So given that, is there a motion to reduce the bond as presented? So Lou, can I turn that to you?
Yes. So Danvers Planning Board regarding definitive subdivision Whipple Hill, 155 Hobart Street, reduction of performance guarantee for completed site improvements. As requested by the applicant, the planning board voted at its meeting of October 12th, 2021 to release $96,437.60 from the tripartite agreement dated August 27th, 2019 among Whipple Hill LLC, Reading Cooperative Bank, and the planning board of the town of Danvers. The remaining balance held under agreement is therefore $53,050.65 to secure the remaining incomplete work. John Farmer, Chair.
Okay, there's a motion to reduce the bond as presented. Is there a second? I think that's going to have to be you two.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Good. Roll call vote. Lou?
Yes.
Tori?
Yes.
I'm in favor, and for the record, Jim is abstaining. And this isn't a matter for Jean as the associate member. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tori, thanks for joining. We appreciate that. I think we got a quorum. It's up to you.
Thank
if
you.
you feel you can.
I'm going to step out here. Good night.
Yeah, thank you. The next, Attorney McCann, have you made a decision on with the other clients in terms of the items on this particular agenda? The next one is 20 Arch Meadow Drive.
Yes, we will. I've been able to speak to my clients, and we will proceed forward with 20 Arch Meadow Drive, as well as 2 High Street, 49 Adams Street. We will be requesting a continuance until the next meeting, which I believe is the 26th of October.
That is correct.
All right, so item 3 on the agenda, 20 Arch Meadow Drive, request for approval for a major modification to a previously approved site plan pursuant to section 4 of the zoning bylaws submitted by MDG Strategic Acquisitions LLC for property in the Highway Corridor Zone District. The applicant proposes to expand the existing outdoor storage area and associated site modifications. Assessors map 54, lot 1. And I'll turn it over to Attorney McCann.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, MDG Strategic Acquisitions LLC, with regard to the property at 20 Arch Meadow Drive. We are seeking a major modification of a previously approved site plan to allow the expansion of the existing outdoor storage area that was approved by this board back in 1990 for the Ann and Hope tenant at that time. With me tonight, I do have Mike Giuliano and Ben Minix of Eaglebrook Engineering. They are the project engineers, and I believe the owner of the property, represented by Tucker Drimmel, is also here, as well as the proposed tenant. This property, as the board is aware, it was acquired by the applicant in 2019. And it's been certainly a challenging market since that time. And much of this large commercial site with an existing large multi-tenanted building is vacant. And the owner of the property has done a lot of market research to determine what the best use of this property would be, where is there a market need, And they have identified that there is a need for quality sales space for construction and building improvement tenants and for that market. So the owner is really trying to make this this property a destination for home improvement and building improvement, and has some good tenants lined up for that. With regard to this application, the tenant is ABC Roofing, and they are intending to take the old Ann and Hope site, which is over 40,000 square feet, about 40,830 square feet of indoor space. They sell roofing materials, siding materials, windows on a wholesale basis. So their customers are contractors, not individual homeowners. And they do need outdoor storage space. The Ann and Hope outdoor storage space that was approved back in 1990 was about 18,000 square feet. We are proposing with this application to increase that by an additional 13,000 square feet, and that will meet the needs of this tenant, who again is a wholesaler to the contractor trade. We did present an application to the Board of Appeals back in August, and we received a special permit for the size of this outdoor storage area, which we needed a special permit for that, as well as a variance. And the Board of Appeals did grant those, seeing some benefit to having this type of a use and a destination for this location. So we are again proposing to expand the existing outdoor storage area. It will be fully enclosed with an 8-foot high chain link fence with a dark green slatting, which will be attractive and also will prevent any visual into the outdoor storage area. There will be nothing stored above the height of the fencing, and you won't be able to see through the fencing. So those were all requirements under the zoning bylaw for this type of outdoor storage. The outdoor storage, just so that you know, is going to consist of palleted, wrapped roof shingles. That's what's going to be stored out here. They're on pallets. They're wrapped roof shingles that a contractor could purchase and have available to the job site. In addition, I will add that this tenant has about between 70 to 85% of the orders are delivered to the job site. So there is not a lot of traffic coming in by individual contractors picking up materials and leaving. Rather, orders are placed and the materials are delivered by the roofing company to the job site. So I think at this point, I would like to turn this over, since this is, again, the zoning relief with regard to the special permit for the use has been granted. And so we are here before you for a modification of the site plan. So I would like to turn this over to the project engineer, Mike Giuliano from Eaglebrook Engineering, and he can walk you through the plan.
Good evening, Mike Giuliano. I'd like to have Ben Minix, my colleague, go through the design and layout with the board, since Ben did all the design work on this.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us. Ben Minix with Eaglebrook Engineering. Are you able to share my screen?
Go right ahead, sure.
All right. Can you see the movement?
We haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Still nothing.
There was a plan up. It looks like we've lost it since.
I could I could put it back up. Ben, would that be helpful if I tried to put it back up?
Yeah, we can try that. I was hoping to use my mouse as a pointer. I don't know why it's not showing. But I can try and speak through it. So if you could please go to sheet C2, existing conditions plan. Thank you. So I just want to give an overall view of the site. 20 Archmeadow Drive is accessed from Route 1 Newberry Street south and also Route 114 east. So there's two main access ways to the site. Unit 1C is the locus building that we're discussing in the existing outdoor storage area to the right. If you could please go to the next sheet. Oh, there we go. I see share content now. Let me try that again. How's that?
Yep.
There we go.
Came them up.
All right. So the proposed outdoor storage area is this 13,000 square feet, as Nancy mentioned, with a proposed chain link fence on the outside. So currently, vehicles travel along the front of the building, along this main entranceway that goes across the front of the building to 114, or they come down the parking lot aisles to Route 1 south. So in order to locate this proposed storage area, we had to reconfigure the driveway, a two-directional driveway around the storage area and along the front of the building, then also to Planet Fitness. And part of that is reconfiguration of the parking lot aisles, the islands. And part of this, we are losing parking spaces, but we are still going to be over the minimum required parking spaces by about 31 spaces. One thing that we wanted to address with this reconfiguration was traffic through the parking lot. I'm sure many board members have been in this parking lot, and there's a lot of traffic that cuts across the parking lot, especially right now where some of the parking lot is empty because the spaces are vacant, and traffic speeds are higher than we would like to see across the parking lot. So I think with this layout, we're going to have an improved traffic flow, slow some of the vehicles down, as well as providing some pedestrian access from the existing front of the building around the proposed storage area and over to Planet Fitness. One thing with the parking layout, we did not want to remove many spaces from the front of Planet Fitness. That is a high traffic area, so if we can provide parking in close proximity, that's the best idea. Entrance to the proposed storage area is provided with these two sliding gates. So this storage area, this new 13,000 square feet, is going to be made flush with the existing concrete outdoor storage area. Vehicles will be able to enter and park overnight. I believe it's 3 trucks will park overnight in the storage area and then leave in the morning. As Nancy mentioned, there isn't going to be a high volume of delivery trucks. It's mainly evening loading during normal working hours and same in the morning when they're going to deliver the materials to the sites. Going over to the stormwater plan, we are proposing additional stormwater structures in order to capture the runoff from the proposed areas. Now, one of the comments we received from engineering today was to show that there's no, or that the existing stormwater system can handle the additional stormwater. But we are actually reducing impervious area and we are not redirecting stormwater to the design point, which is the wetland to the direction is that's northeast. So we're keeping everything essentially the same. It's only about a 1% reduction in impervious area, so approximately the same. We are treating the stormwater with deep zone catch basins and a hydrodynamic separator before tying back into the existing drainage system. Now, the existing stormwater system discharges to a wetland towards the northeast. We are proposing all of this work outside the 100-foot buffer zone. If you can see this dashed line on the outside, that is our proposed saw cut to the existing pavement. So we have kept that outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So approximately 59,000 square feet of pavement will be saw cut and removed, and approximately 52,000 square feet will be repaved with the reconfigured islands and the new storage area. I believe that's the main points. We are proposing some additional plantings. As Nancy mentioned, we will have the slatted chain link fence, but we're also providing plantings around the fence and in some of the landscaped islands. We'll also have to remove, relocate a couple of light poles and one hydrant. The location to be confirmed with engineering, but there was no comments on the location from the review. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Gene, why don't we start with you tonight?
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, Lou?
Yes, just a couple of questions. In terms of, I know the applicant went before the Board of Appeals, and what was the, and so in terms of, what was the relief that was granted with respect to the expansion of the area?
We received a variance to allow the percentage of outdoor storage area to be greater than that permitted under the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw limits the square footage of outdoor storage to a percentage of your indoor area. So we received a variance to allow that. And then we received the special permit to allow for the outdoor storage, because that is by special permit. And then thirdly, we received a variance because surprisingly, the highway corridor zone does not allow wholesale. It allows retail, and it allows a combination of retail wholesale. But if you are strictly wholesale, which this company is, for some reason or other, it's not permitted in the highway corridor zone. So we did have to get a variance for that, and we did receive that. And I have to say there was some audience participation as well at the hearing, and the board members as well as the audience members were very much in favor of this. And it was noted that this property is also in the adult entertainment zoning district. So to have a destination that's being developed for home improvement, building improvement on such a large multi-tenanted building was really very well received.
Okay, got it. So, okay, it's good to know. In terms of the, and it's my understanding just based on the presentation, so in terms of, I think the percentage was 70 to 80% of the materials would be delivered to the site. So we would not see a lot of necessarily large contracting trucks coming here to pick up materials and that sort of thing.
That's correct. That's correct. Most of the orders are placed either online or by phone or whatever, and the materials are then delivered to the job site by ABC Roofing, which is a national company. This tenant happens to be a national company with over 800 locations throughout the United States. So it's a very very well known construction supply company.
Okay. Gotcha. And then with respect to the, and I know there was discussion about the sort of the circulation of the area and doing some revisions to the sort of the flow of the area. What about the issue of parking? I know that there seem to be some new parking spaces. Is that right? To at least replacing spaces. Has there been any consideration to reducing the number of parking spaces that are being proposed, just because, even as you mentioned, we do have, it doesn't seem like there'll be a tremendous amount of on-site traffic in terms of pickups.
Yeah. I will let Ben speak to this in a minute, but I would just note that we did receive comments from the planning staff on Friday that recommended some reduction in the parking spaces, and there were 2 locations, and I believe we are in agreement with one of those locations, which is the little cursor is showing you there. We could reduce those parking spaces, but the other parking spaces that the planning staff had suggested maybe we consider removing are very close to Planet Fitness, and those really would be used by those folks, and that's fairly busy, so we would not want to reduce those.
I see.
Ben,
So
did you have anything to add to that?
Just before you did, what number would you be agreeable to reducing?
Ben, do you have the number of along that section?
So this is, it'd be a total of 17 spaces. So that's 13 here, and then there's another 4 here that we may be open to removing these, but these are essentially existing spaces. So we don't really feel the need to remove these. This may help so that you're not backing into oncoming traffic, as mentioned in the review comment. So we're okay with that and these spaces being removed.
Got it. Okay, so you'd be agreeable to removing those 4 along with 13 for 17 total.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, and then in addition, those parking spaces that would be removed would be landscaped, so it'd be pervious area. So we'll have additional pervious area than what we're reducing right now.
Great, so there'll be additional pervious areas. Okay. Great. Okay, that was a concern I had in terms of looking at some of the planning comments. So, okay, that's I have no further questions right now.
Okay, great. Jim?
Just a question about hours of operation.
Yes. Hours of operation Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturdays, 7 a.m. to noon, and no hours on Sunday.
Okay, and as far as deliveries, deliveries coming to the location to bring product, are we going to have restricted hours on that where we don't have trucks idling all night? I know you don't have too many residential neighbors, but I know the mobile home and the atrium are not too far away. Do you have any comment on that?
Both of those are quite a ways away from this particular location on the site. Tractor trailer truck deliveries to the site, there's about 6 a week, so it's not a heavy volume of tractor trailer trucks, and those would be delivered during normal business hours.
Okay, great. Any proposed lighting changes?
Ben, did you have any lighting changes?
So there is a light pole within the proposed storage area. We would be removing that, replacing it with a new light pole, most likely in this island. There's an existing light pole, another one there. We would move out of the proposed drive lane, and everything else would remain the same. There may be additional lighting needed within the proposed storage area, but at this point, we believe the existing light pole here, which is going to remain, would be sufficient.
So you're going to provide staff with cutouts, and I assume they'll be shine down lighting, LED type box lighting?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay. So we'll just make that condition,
Yep.
I guess?
That would be fine. Yeah, it would definitely be dark sky lighting and only security lighting potentially in the evening, because as I indicated with the hours of operation, they're not open at night.
So no spillover light, just keep it within the site.
Yeah.
And that'll just be something that staff can review, David?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay. That's all I have, John.
Okay, great. So my questions, I share the same questions that Lou does. I think it'd be great to eliminate those parking spaces out front so people aren't backing into the traffic. I'm familiar with this location. So if you're coming off of Route 1, you got the Leslie Pool facility right in front, and I know I'm a member over at Planet Fitness. The tendency was to stay left if you wanted to go park in that parking lot between your location and Planet Fitness, that parking lot at the top of the page. How's the traffic going to come in now? Because obviously they can't do that anymore. They're not going to come left, go down, and take a right into that parking lot. I can't really tell from the drawing. Is it going to be natural for them to stay to the right-hand side to get into the parking lot for Planet Fitness, for example? Because that's where most of the traffic is, into that corner. Can you just comment on that?
Yes, so I believe the current traffic condition is just a creature of habit, where most of the drivers know that there's no cars in this space, so they just go straight here over the speed bumps, go through here and cut through the parking lot to Planet Fitness, the most direct route. Once this drive lane gets shifted around here, you're going to have islands that require the driver to stop, turn right, stop again, and then go into the parking lot. So the next fastest route would be to use the existing main driveway aisle to go to Planet Fitness over the speed bumps. So I think it's an improvement that it slows down the traffic through this proposed reconfigured area, so they can either go up the aisles and turn right or go over the speed bumps this way.
Yeah, I agree. So, and how big are the delivery trucks? Would they be coming the same way to drop off product?
So the delivery trucks are a WB50 truck, not a full-size interstate trailer, but we have designed the truck paths so that they can either come up this lane and turn here and back in, or they can come up this way and turn in this way. Yeah. Vehicles, or excuse me, full-size interstate trailers can still come around the building, go this way. They can still make the turn this way. So we really have taken that into account to not limit the size of the truck through these areas.
And do you anticipate some of the deliveries coming off of 114, or is it naturally going to be Route 1? I mean, I guess it depends where they're coming from, right? So
yeah, most likely it'd be Route 95 to Route 1, because it's only access from 114 east. So okay. It'd be difficult to make that.
And then finally, I know the Registry of Motor Vehicles is over there, and I forget who was way back in the left-hand corner. Do a lot of those people exit to try to get on 114? Because, I do like the fact that you're changing the layout, because traffic did move pretty quickly, when the to exit out to 114. So is there a percentage? Do you have a feel for how many people exit this location going on a 114 compared to Route 1?
I don't really think that we do. There's probably, I would guess, a traffic person would look at those uses, the registry use. I think there's David Bridles is in the corner there. Would probably look at it and divide it 50-50. I don't think we haven't had a need to study which direction they're going, because they're not, in either case, they're not going out onto a residential street. They're going out onto Route 114 or Route 1. Those are really the two choices that you have.
Yeah.
Right. I've been on the site like 6 or 7 times, surveying and so forth. And my observations show that most people are coming from Route 1 and bearing left to go to the registry. And I'd say most people are going back the same direction.
Okay, that's helpful. And besides shingles, what other materials does the company sell wholesale? I mean, obviously, I understand roofing supplies could be a lot of stuff too, but is it predominantly shingles?
Yes, shingles. Well, no, roofing, shingles, siding, and windows.
In windows, okay.
Yeah, those are the 3 items that they specialize in for the contractor trade. And
think
they'll
this,
have display areas inside for the contractors to see and supplies and things like that.
do you expect much foot traffic? But the contractors pretty know what they want. Your customers know, and they just go in and pick it up.
Yeah, I think the estimate that was given by the store manager or the representative, actually, the regional manager at the Board of Appeals was something like, under 10 a day, something like that.
That makes sense. All right, I think this is a great reuse. I don't have any objections. David, Josh, anyone from the public want to speak on this application?
I was not, no one from the public communicated prior to the meeting. I'm not about this specific item, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great.
So,
okay, having no comments from the public. Jim, do you mind reading in? Well, I guess we got to close the public
Move to
hearing.
close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Is there a second to close the public hearing?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So Jim, do you mind reading the main motion in?
Sure. All right. Approval of a major modification to a previously approved site plan 20 Arch Meadow Drive. Date of application September 1st, 2021. Date of hearing October 12th, 2021. Date of decision October 12th, 2021. The Danvers Planning Board approves the modification submitted for property at 20 Arch Meadow Drive, Assessors Map 54, Lot 1, shown on the plan set titled Proposed Permit Site Plan, Arch Meadow Drive, Danvers, Massachusetts, prepared by Eagle Brook Engineering and Survey LLC. Dated September 1st, 2021, revised September 16th, 2021, consisting of 9 sheets. This approval is granted with the following waivers. 1, Section 4.8.10, no submission of building elevations. 2, Section 4.8.11, no submission of a lighting photometric plan. This approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, this approval is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site plan shall lapse within 2 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date.
Great. Was there any other amendments you were making to that, Jim, or did you add it to it?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we do need to amend that the removal and replacement of any and all light fixtures shall be approved by planning staff.
Great. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, did you
Yeah.
also want to talk about the parking spaces that we discussed?
Yes, I thought yes, I would like that. So Jim, we were talking about the removal of those front parking spaces in front of this, the expansion area. I think there was I forget the total number. Was there 17 in total? Was that?
There's 13 in front of the fence, and then there's 4 more near the intersection near Planet Fitness.
So, Mr. Chair, I would say that it's a total of 17 spaces that back up into the main drive, drive shall be removed from the plan. A condition, something like that.
Okay. So with those 2 conditions, is there a second? Lou?
Second, yes.
Okay, so roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. Jean? I'm sorry, Jean?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. I think this is a nice reuse of this property, and I wish the applicant all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Okay, the fourth item on tonight's agenda is 2 High Street, request for a special permit and site plan approval submitted by Joseph Bono and 2 High Street Tavern, Inc., pursuant to section 18.7.c, table 18-8, Danvers zoning bylaw. Said property is in the Danvers Town Center for DTCC zoning district. The applicant is proposing to expand the existing restaurant in the construction of a vestibule entrance. Assessors map 43, lot 259. Attorney McKeon.
Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. And with me tonight, I believe, is Joe Bono. He was on earlier. I think he is still on, as well as Catherine Cruz from Hancock Engineering, who is the project engineer. And this is a pretty straightforward, I think, application with regard to the Berry Tavern at 2 High Street, which is located in the DTC core zoning district. The Berry Tavern, as you all know, is an existing restaurant, and it consists of 2 parts. There is the, I'll call it the east side, which was the original Berry Tavern, and then the west side, which is the had been the former yogurt restaurant. Those are the 2 parts that make up the Berry Tavern now. And in the middle, there is the former tailor shop. That's about 1,500 square feet. And what we are proposing to do is to utilize that tailor shop as part of the restaurant, which just simply makes sense. The property is all owned by the same owner, Joe Bono, and we're proposing to utilize that middle section for restaurant purposes. Right now, the middle section is dead space, and it's used as a pass-through between the east side and the west side of the Berry Tavern. We are not proposing any increase in seating. We just will take the existing seating and spread it out within that and make reasonable and efficient use of that 1,500 square feet. We're here on that portion of the application because when you add the 1,500 square feet to the existing 2 parts of the Berry Tavern, we exceed 5,000 square feet. So under the core zoning district, a restaurant in excess of 5,000 square feet, and we'll have about 5,420, requires a special permit. So we're not increasing seating. We're not changing the use. We're simply taking this dead space in the middle and using it for restaurant space, and that triggers a square footage requirement for the special permit. So that's the special permit that we're seeking. Again, no change in the building for that purpose, no change in the seating. The other reason why we're here is for the site plan, because we are proposing a 160 square foot vestibule addition on the front so that there will be a covered entrance for patrons going into the restaurant. Under the, I believe under the proposed zoning amendments that you have coming up that you'll be talking about later, this vestibule of 160 square feet would not trigger site plan review, but under the current regulations, it does. So that's again the reason why we have a site plan before you. So the site itself, the building and the site are grandfathered under the new zoning district under 18.6.g. And this is a retrofit essentially of an existing building. So we have met a number of times, and I thank the planning staff and particularly Director Fields for meeting with us on this on a number of occasions to determine exactly, given that this is a grandfathered situation, we have a grandfathered building. We have a grandfathered parking aspect of it, grandfathered landscaping that we really need. Simply, we went through this, as I said, a number of times, and we came to a determination that we need the special permit for a restaurant over 5,000 square feet, and we need the site plan approval because of the 160 square foot vestibule addition. And we do meet all of the requirements for a special permit under section 30.2 of the zoning bylaw, and I have itemized those, and I'm happy to go through that in the application. But I think very briefly, since the site plan aspect of it is quite limited, I'd like to turn this over to Katie Cruz, and she can just review the site with you and show you the vestibule addition area. So I think Katie is prepared to do that.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Katie Cruz. I'm with Hancock Associates, the civil engineer for the project. I'm going to share the plan on the screen. Hopefully you can all see this. Like Nancy said, the proposed site work is very limited. It will include the 160-foot vestibule addition, 3 runs of wrought iron fencing, one here, and one here, and 7 proposed planters that would have seasonal plantings. The existing brick patio space will remain. It's not going to be touched at all. There are no proposed utility or drainage improvements. It's really just the vestibule, the fencing, and the planters. We have requested a number of waivers for the site plan, which I can run through quickly. One was for the information from the required landscaping plan to be added to the site plan. One was that no utilities, grading, or drainage was proposed, so we have not put that information on the plan. We have highlighted some existing grades that demonstrate that the existing walkway into the building meets ADA requirements. A waiver from the 30% landscaped area, since the patio will remain as is. The owner is making an effort for beautification with these 7 proposed planters. For a waiver for foundation plantings and streetscaping, similarly, the patio will remain the same. And then two sections related to the central business zoning district, design waiver for special permits, and a waiver from dimensional requirements for the small addition to the existing building. And I know that we received a couple of comments related to stormwater from the engineering department. One was that a stormwater permit will be required, and we will apply for that. And another to TV the existing roof drain from the building, which we will do as well.
I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Lou, why don't we start with you?
Okay, sure. Just a couple of questions. I'm familiar with the site. I mean, I think it's been, you know, I've gone to the restaurant. I think it's been a good addition to downtown. Some questions with respect just to the, you know, you indicate that this will not impact in terms of number of seats. That I guess it'll just be spread out. Will there be any? Is there any anticipated increase though in numbers of people who could be using the restaurant, like in terms of greater use in the bar, in terms of that could potentially be standing or people at high tops, that sort of thing?
No, nothing is changing with regard to capacity or with the number of seats, either inside or outside. That will remain the same. Okay.
In terms of the parking area, I know that you indicated that it is grandfathered in, but you're seeking a waiver. What's sort of the parking arrangement now? I know that you see people that are parked in the in the People's United Bank parking lot.
Yeah.
Is there an arrangement with them, or is that just sort of has that just happened and the bank is not, because they're not open, they're not could you explain a little bit about sort of the current parking arrangements?
Sure. The current parking, there are municipal lots across the street on a couple of different streets off of Conan Street. There's street parking on Maple Street. There's also the parking lot directly across the street, which is utilized. And then the owner of the Berry Tavern does have an agreement with the bank to allow parking during off-bank hours as a neighborly arrangement.
Okay. Because one thing it is, I do find it's a little bit confusing, I know, because I believe that there's still signs that that in the bank parking lot that say like parking for bank customers only, and you shall be towed. So you wonder, coming from having lived in the DC area where if you had a sign up that said you'll be towed, you will be towed. I wasn't sure if there was any sort of, I'm wondering whether people are potentially discouraged from parking there out of a concern of that, and whether or not there's been any, the bank has maybe thought of maybe modifying the signs.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any thought of modifying the signs. That allows the bank to enforce if they need to enforce. But again, there is a neighborly business-to-business arrangement that Mr. Bono has with the bank to allow his customers to park there generally after banking hours.
Okay. And the vestibule that will be added, will that affect at all the in terms of the outdoor seating, in terms of the numbers of outdoor seats?
Nope, the same number of outdoor seats. They will be arranged a little bit differently. And as Katie mentioned, there's going to be some new railings and put into place, and the planters. So the vestibule will kind of dress up the front of the building and provide the protection for customers going inside. But the railings and the wrought iron fencing that's being proposed is going to define and make, I think, the outdoor seating area a little more attractive and a little more defined for that area. But the seating will remain the same number.
Will the outdoor seating still be it will still be seasonal as it is now? I know that they usually will have heaters as the sort of in the fall and as well as in the springtime.
Yes, outdoor seating has become very popular. Maybe the one good thing, right, that's come out of the last 2 years is a lot of outdoor seating arrangements, and it's very popular. As long as it can be comfortable for the patrons, that area will be available.
Okay. Very good. I have no further questions.
Okay. Jean, do you have questions?
No, I don't have questions. Thank you.
Jim?
No questions.
So I just have a couple minor questions. It's great to see a successful restaurant in downtown Danvers, especially one this size. I didn't realize it seats 200, which is great. My question is, I was there not too long ago for pickup. Is the intent for that main entrance, the 1,500 square feet we talked about, to be the main entrance for waiting for a table, and if you have a pickup order to go? Is that still the intent? Is that when you say that's the use of the restaurant? Is that, I think that's how they're using it now. Is that how they're going to continue to use it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there won't be a separate entrance point for pickup, if that's what you're asking.
Right. Okay. And then obviously, if the weather's not that great, that's going to be the main waiting area for someone to get their table based on the timing. Okay. And what about the entertainment that goes on? Is there any plans to expand the entertainment? I know they have some bands or a few singers that go in there on certain nights. That's
right.
Is that still the plan? Is it going to be expanded to the new addition?
No, I don't think it's going to be expanded to the new addition area, but the entertainment that is there now is under an entertainment license issued by the Board of Selectmen. with any restrictions that the selectmen put on the entertainment license. So this area that we're talking about, the 1,500 square feet, kind of this thin area in the middle, will simply be to allow tables to be spread out a little bit better than they are now, and simply make use of this space that's a no man's land right now.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. I'm supportive of this. I think it's been a nice business, and happy to see them expanding. So does the public wish to speak on this application? Do we have anyone that wanted to speak, Josh or David?
I don't think we have been informed that anyone wanted to speak, but if there's anybody that would like to speak now.
Okay.
Hearing none.
Hearing none. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I move
So
to
moved.
close the public hearing. Oh, sorry.
Second,
All right. Roll call, Jean?
Yep.
Jim?
yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well. So Jim, I know you've been good at this. Do you mind reading the main motion?
So do you want to start with the special permit first, John?
Yeah, please. Let's start with the special permit. And Jean, you're going to be voting for this special permit.
All right, grant of special permit for 2 High Street, date of application August 19th, 2021. Date of hearing and decision October 12th, 2021. This is to certify that a meeting of the Danvers Planning Board held on October 12th, 2021, having been requested under section 18.7C, table 18-8, restaurant and pub over 5,000 GFA. No drive-up window of the zoning bylaw for property located at 2 High Street, assessors map 43 lot 259, voted to approve the request submitted by Joseph T. Bono and 2 High Street Tavern, Inc. for a special permit for the expansion of an existing restaurant. The special permit is associated with a restaurant which is over 5,000 GFA, as shown on the following plans. Site plan entitled permit site plan, Berry Tavern, 2 High Street, Danvers, Mass. 01923, prepared by Hancock Associates. Dated July 9, 2020, revised to September 28, 2021, consisting of 5 sheets. Elevations entitled framing plan, elevation section prepared by DF Valente, dated February 7, 2020, revised to April 28, 2021, consisting of 1 sheet. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, 1, the special permit decision shall be recorded at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds. 2, pursuant to section 18.11D, transportation mitigation fee of the Danvers zoning bylaw, the applicant and/or property owner shall provide a payment of $480, which is the transportation mitigation fee associated with the new vestibule, 160 square foot vestibule, times $3 per each square foot of increased net floor area. The planning board finds that pursuant to section 30.3 of the zoning bylaw, conditions for special permits, all the following conditions have been satisfied. 1, the municipal water and sewer systems will not become overloaded by the proposed use. Hold on. 2, the public streets will not become overloaded by the proposed use. 3, the value of other land and buildings will not be depreciated by the proposed use. 4, the specific site is an appropriate location for the use or structures. 5, the use developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. 6, there will not be an undue nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. 7, the proposed use or structure will be in harmony with the general purpose of the bylaw. Any approval of this special permit shall lapse within 3 years from the grant thereof, if construction has not begun by such date, except for good cause. That's it.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, second by Jean. Very good. All right, roll call vote. Lou?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'm in favor of the special permit as well. So can we now turn to site plan approval?
Yes, approval of site plan, 2 High Street, Danvers, Mass. Date of application August 19, 2021. Date of hearing and decision October 12, 2021. The Danvers Planning Board approves the site plan for property at 2 High Street, assessors map 43 lot 259, shown in the plan set titled Permit Site Plan Berry Tavern, 2 High Street, Danvers, Mass. 01923, prepared by Hancock Associates, dated July 9, 2020, revised to September 28, 2021, consisting of 5 sheets. This approval is granted with the following waivers. 1, Section 4.8.6 landscape plan, no landscape plan submitted. 2, Section 4.8.7 utility plan, no utility plan submitted. 3, Section 4.8.8 grading and drainage stormwater plan, no grading and drainage stormwater plan submitted. 4, 4.8.11 lighting photometric plan, no lighting photometric plan submitted. 5, Section 4.10.2.c, Section 1, site landscaping specific design standards. The minimum total square footage of landscape area to ensure the above criteria are met is 30% of total impervious surface of the proposed development, except where otherwise reduced in the zoning bylaw. The proposed landscape areas total less than 30% of the impervious area. 6, Section 18.6G, development on pre-existing buildings and development sites. Table 18-6, any addition to the front must be placed within the front build-to zone, BTZ. The proposed vestibule is not located in the build-to zone, BTZ. This approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, this approval is subject to the attached list of general conditions. Any approval of this site shall lapse within 2 years from the grant thereof if construction has not begun by such date. That's it.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Lou. Okay, roll call vote. Jean,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
and I'm in favor of the site plan approval as well. So we wish the applicant all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Yep.
Thank you.
The next item is 49 Adams Street, request for special permit and site plan approval submitted by Jared Hazel pursuant to Section 30, Table 1, and Section 4 of the Danvers zoning bylaw. Said property is in residential 1 zoning district. The applicant proposes to construct a 2-family structure behind the existing 2-family dwelling in the assessors map 57 lot 27. Now the applicant has asked for a continuation until our next meeting. So do we need a motion to do that, or is that automatic?
Yes.
We do. Okay.
No,
Is there
yeah,
a motion to continue 49 Adams Street to our next meeting, which is October 26?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, roll call vote. Jean,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well to continue 49 Adams Street to the next meeting. So
Thank you very much.
thank you. So the last agenda item before the zoning bylaw changes. Now, this has been opened up. The public hearing was opened up at our last meeting. Maybe I can just, David, if you wanted briefly for maybe new people who are listening in tonight, we can go over what's being proposed for the special town meeting. We had, two areas, one from last year's suspended town meeting that never took place because of COVID, and some new items. And then if we can, once you do a kind of an overview, there's certain ones that, I kind of wanted us to follow up. We had some questions around the plan development and use variance article, trying to get some feedback of other communities. I think Burlington was one. And then we can maybe have some conversation around the EFLA article as well. And then since we started out today's meeting with the civic zoning change, I don't know if there's as much comments, but we can use that one as well. And then if we can, David, just talk about the schedule. I know we're going to have on the 26th, we continue this. We have 2 members who couldn't participate today that will be back on the 26th, and we can final recommendations at that particular point so that the public has an opportunity to weigh in today as well as in 2 weeks. So David, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure thing. Thank you for the setup. I can run through the planning board articles quickly, but we do have an outstanding owner's petition from last year, from 2020, November 2020, for Outer Maple Street, and we've been promising to get them on. Would you mind if we take that first?
Yep. Sure, let's start with that. Okay.
All right, so that's Attorney McCann for the applicants as well. I can share my screen if you'd like, if you need a map or anything.
Sure, that would be helpful. Thank you. Again, my name is Nancy McCann, and I'm here on behalf of the proponents of this article, which is relative to 490, 492, and 500 Maple Street. This is the same article that was set for the last November special town meeting that was canceled, and the board held a hearing on this just almost exactly a year ago tonight. And the planning board did at that time vote to give a favorable recommendation to town meeting relative to this proposed zone change. So we would certainly be requesting a favorable recommendation again. This again is regarding the property at 490, 492, and 500 Maple Street. These parcels are located in the Residence 3 zoning district, and they really are not suitable for uses associated with those in the Residence 3, which is single family, large lot, large setback types of developments. And in fact, 500 Maple Street received a use variance some years ago when use variances were still permitted in the residential zoning district, which allowed a sales office at that location. Since that time, use variances are no longer permitted in a residential zoning district. So there is no way to modify that variance to allow any other use. So what we're seeking is to rezone these three parcels from R3 to C1, which will allow the uses that are more appropriate for these particular uses as the neighborhood has grown up around them, and allow dimensional requirements that are more appropriate to the size of these lots. And the uses that would be permitted, for example, in the C1 zoning district would include a small office, it would include personal service, small retail, small shoe repair, a little cafe, a trade shop, those kinds of things, which would be appropriate in this area and would fit well. Because again, we have at 500 Maple, we have an old use variance for a sales office that we really can't do anything with at this point as far as modifying that. And then we have post office property and a home on that very small triangular piece. So this would just allow the property owners some more flexibility to be able to utilize their property for a more appropriate use than a single family on a 30,000 square foot lot that they don't have. So that's it. The same presentation essentially that was made last year. It is the same exact proposal, and it is to rezone those three parcels from R3 to C1. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So Gene, since Jim, Lou, and I participated last year, do you have questions for the applicant?
I don't think I have any questions. So
Okay.
basically, just so that I get this correct, the rezoning would be so that it could change from residential property to small commercial.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Okay, and mechanically for the people listening, it'd be a decision recommendation coming from the planning board to make its way through to the town meeting floor, where the town meeting members will determine the outcome. of this particular article. So, and just, Attorney McCann, just for clarification, this is the parcel where the small post office in Hawthorne, the Hawthorne post office, is that the location that we're talking about?
That is one of the parcels.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, Jim, Lou, you guys have any questions? Okay, David?
No, I don't.
Okay, anyone from the public want to speak on this particular article or proposal?
Yep,
We haven't labeled them articles yet, David, right? Do we have formal, or do we now?
We do not yet. That will be, well, I can go over the schedule later on.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Duggan, I think I heard you said you might have a comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's Matthew Duggan, Selectman. So I just, it's been a year, so I don't remember all the nuances of this effort. The commercial one, so there's going to be, are the current structures going to be leveled? What's the plan for the property? I'd like to understand what the plan is so I can see what, you know, whether this is something that the town meeting would want to do.
There is no plan at this point. We have 3 parcels. One has a single family home on that little triangular parcel. The next is the post office, which has a post office and part residential. And then the 500 Maple Street has a sales office by variance. There is no proposal yet to do anything with these properties other than to rezone them to give an option for a use that would fit within this zoning district and would fit within the size of these parcels. So there is no proposal to demolish any of the buildings. It just simply gives the landowners an opportunity to have some options because the R3 zoning district is the most restricted district, and there are no use variances permitted. And the dimensionals are all set up for a 30,000 square foot lot, which these are not. So this gives the landowners some options going forward.
Okay, all right, thank you for that information. So, Mr. Chairman, if we can just go to staff and just get their thoughts on this in terms of, you know, requirements from table 2, such as parking and what C1 allows that these co-joined parcels to, what's the potential, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Can we ask staff for their input?
Yeah, David, you want to take that? You know, put your crystal ball on, think of what could be done here.
I have the. I also have the use table open, David, if you need assistance at all.
Hot shot, Josh, go for it.
Okay, so C1. So by right, you could do convenience store. You could do a funeral home. There is motor vehicle service repair filling station by right. Neighborhood store by right. Office. Personal retail service establishment by right. Restaurant with drive-through. Retail sales. Wholesale trade, accessory uses. You could do some, you can do some industrial uses, but obviously smaller parcels, I'm not sure the practicality in that. Animal hospital, farm stand, let's see, utilities, public utilities. Would you like any more, Mr. Duggan?
I think I've where you're going. Pretty much.
I was just going down. I was just going down. There's so many lines, so many rows.
I think for what it's worth as well, the dimensional requirements are not as stringent in C1. It was designed for smaller parcels. It seems like from the table. So putting it in something like a highway corridor, which has, I believe, an acre requirement for minimum lot size would kind of set, I don't want to say set them up to fail, but it would be difficult. So C1's probably a better fit for these smaller parcels.
Yeah. And it sounds like probably the design would be to go up and utilize the height versus the square footage. What is the square footage of all three parcels if they were combined? We know that, just a rough estimate.
I would have to, I'd have to add that up. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine. I just
Yeah,
was,
I don't know. Of course, any proposed development would certainly have to comply with site plan requirements and things like that. If any new development were proposed.
that's fine. It's a tough area right there. And I don't think that there's really any parking per se off-site. So for any functionality, I think you'd have to keep it within the, within the lot. So, all right, I was just curious. I know we went through this a year ago, and there really wasn't much opposition to it. So, all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this particular item? If not, David, why don't you kind of give another overview, and then we can hone in on a couple key ones that I think are key that we can get a conversation going. Obviously, we have the next meeting to continue this. So,
Mr. Chairman, I believe you want to be taking a motion on this particular article?
Well, I was hoping, Attorney McCann, that we could wait till the next meeting. We have all the board members that can weigh in. I mean, is there a timing issue of why this one needs to be voted on tonight?
Oh, no, there doesn't, but we'll have to come back to you. It's just the proponent will then have to have me back at the next meeting, which I'm fine to do. Where else would I be on a Tuesday? But I was just want to be sure that we have there should be a separate motion on.
Okay, we'll make sure that, my hope is that we can get them all of these that are going to the town meeting voted on next week, so that we can have all the members participate. So I recognize this one will have a separate one, but there'll be, my understanding, right, David, we're going to be making recommendations on everything that's going to go to the floor.
Okay.
That's correct. We can, the citizens petition, we can have a separate motion for, and we'll have reports ready at the next meeting for the planning board's recommendations.
Okay.
To go to town meeting ultimately.
All right, and that would be at the October 26th meeting.
That's correct.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
All right, sure. So I'll start with dates because we were just talking about it. So we were, planning staff was at the Finance Committee last Thursday. So that concluded our full circle of rounds to every board and every committee that wanted to hear anything from us. I think we ran the gamut and made it to where we made it. Out of that meeting came, well, we wanted to get everyone's feedback first before making any recommendations as staff to you. And out of that meeting came the pullback of civic space, as I said, based on obviously the comments from this board, several others, but that was kind of the final piece that we had to add, was meeting with the Finance Committee. As another part of that, I wanted to alert this board, the dwelling conversions article has not so far been received tremendously favorably, and I think yet again that's another one that we probably want to pull up on, take a look at it. Maybe it just needs some tweaks in the future. Not exactly sure what the future holds on that, but I don't think this year is the year to put that forward. Again, if we want to have discussion on that, we certainly can, but at this point, staff's recommendation would be to not go forward with that particular article. So that being said, we're looking to continue these public hearings on the 26th, as we stated. The select board will be basically by fiat closing the warrant on the 18th at 4 p.m. So really that's notice to all that if there were any other petitions that were to be submitted, they should be in by close of business or 4 p.m. on the 18th. After that, 2 days later, the constable actually post a warrant, which is part of the procedure. I won't necessarily go into the details there, but we'll be posting that. And then the select board's warrant review, which is more or less where they take their positions on articles, will be November 2nd, which is a Tuesday. And then Thursday, November 4th, the Finance Committee will take their final warrant review. After that, we'll get all the materials out to all town meeting members, and we'll be holding an info session on all articles Saturday before town meeting, which is November 13th. So we're still mostly sticking to schedule, little shuffling, but not too bad. And then in terms of going over the articles, I can run through my slideshow again, or I can just give a verbal overview.
I mean, I think a verbal overview is good, and then, you know, we can open it up for questions to the board and then to the public.
Sure.
How's that sound?
Sounds fine. Okay, so picking up from the fall of 2020, for those who have been following along, we will have the following zoning amendments, or proposals anyway. Changes to Section 2, the administrative section, changes to the cluster development section, changes to character-based zoning districts, which is sections 18 through 22 that was adopted February 2020. Changes to site plan review for Section 4, and then updates to the definition section, which is at the end of the bylaw, Section 40. Part of the updates from last year did include civic space zoning. That is technically a carryover. We discussed it a bit last year, but we're back again with that one. And then updates for 2021, I guess they're all for 2021, but the new articles, as we've been calling them, were changes to the multifamily section and changes to inclusionary housing, floodplain overlay, which is an update from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, agency, I'm sorry, not association. Planned developments, EFLAs, outdoor storage, and storage containers. So the chair had mentioned specifically planned developments, which I'm happy to dig into, but perhaps we wanted to jump into changes to EFLAs first. It seems a bit more manageable.
Yeah.
So changes there, I think what we heard from some of the other boards and some of the public, we did want to change the wording a little bit on that one article to not include common areas as part of the changes for the bylaw. We want to leave those exclusive, leave it to the applicant to determine where in the home or the expanded home their common area will be. Other than that, I don't think there have been any other changes that we haven't already gone over last time, but if there's specific questions on that bylaw, can certainly take those.
Questions for David from the board on EFLA? Okay, hearing none. Anyone from the public want to comment on this particular article?
Yep, Matthew Duggan.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Duggan.
Great, thank you, Matthew Duggan, Selectman. So I think we haven't been as stringent as maybe perhaps we should in terms of the actual square footage of the EFLAs. I think that we're getting a little bit lenient in allowing considerable additional space where by right it's 750 square feet. And I think we're allowing much more space to become available. And in terms of the common area, I mean, that's an important component of this bylaw because it helps to prevent the use at a later time of becoming a totally separate dwelling unit. In fact, where it could be, you know, a single family home with an EFLA suddenly becomes a de facto two-family. And I'm sure that happens today, but we need to ensure that we've done our due diligence in kind of trying to prevent that. I think so. I'm not sure that this language actually. I see open porches. There's some other items that have been crossed out. It just, I mean, we're removing verbiage and not necessarily adding an enhancement. So I'm not going to really go much beyond that. I think when it comes before the select board or even at town meeting, there can always be amendments. So the board should keep that in mind, that if town meeting members feel that there's some gaps here, that they have the ability to kind of fill them in. So that's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments from the public on EFLA? Hearing none. So David, why don't you go to the next one, the plan development and use variance? You want to just kind of update? That's kind of a pretty new approach, right?
Yep.
To the way we do business in the town.
Sure. Happy to do so. So I had sent this board some updated materials after the last meeting. I think there was a request, and also I think it was necessary to show you fully where we were going. I think we were just trying to float the idea, get some feedback in the initial round, and which we heard, which is good, and then move on from there. So we've had some other feedback from some of the other boards, mostly favorable. I think there was a few questions very similar on, were we going to include any lots in town? Would it be size restricted? So far, we have not proposed a size restriction, and that's not because we haven't heard you. It's just looking at the dimensional table. The closest thing to go off of we might have to look for is something like the commercial 3, which just has a 40,000 square foot lot area requirement, or what we call a builder's acre. But we're trying to be cognizant of, and we sort of explained this at the finance committee as well, that there's quite a large number of pre-existing non-conforming lots or uses as well on residential lots. And as Attorney McCann explained, there's currently really no out for them. And even through substitution of a nonconformity through a finding, it's very difficult for those lots to really take advantage of anything that they would need to do outside of just flipping over into houses. But what we commonly hear from a lot of them is, we don't want to go to housing. We want to keep doing our business. We just need to expand or add an additional use to our business or do something else to make it a little bit more robust. And right now, there's really no out for them. There's not much they can do. So that's not me advocating for keeping residential properties in. It's just something that the whole time has come up throughout. And we've been dealing with a lot of property owners who were saying, we are actually in favor of this because it finally gives us the ability to do something with our property that's not just what it's currently zoned for. So there's that part of it. Another addition that I sent to this board was the regulations section, which just really kind of detailed, if you're going to submit forward a proposal, what that would look like. I believe I sent a flow chart along as well to show what the process was. And I can share those with whomever wants them, or we can get those up on the website as well. And another thing I passed along, I think, Mr. Chair, you specifically asked, were examples from the town of Burlington. Was one of the other communities we were looking at. There's a few others, but I sent along some examples from that community. And one of the things I wanted to note, there's a few projects, Mr. Morris can correct me if I'm wrong, he used to work in that community, but there's a section of town known as the District, which has a number of mixed-use office spaces or multi-use office spaces, which itself, the entire area was zoned through a plan development process, went through town meeting. They did the processes that is laid out in that community. So if you're familiar with that, or Josh, is the area where the Wegmans in Burlington is, was that
Yes.
also?
Actually, for people familiar with Burlington, a significant amount of the commercial area of town are a series of individual plan development districts. There's about approximately 10, and then the majority of the commercial space that you see in town, close to 128.
So can I just ask a follow-up question on that then, Josh? So Burlington in particular, and obviously they've gone through a lot of change and have done a pretty good job of their planning. They have districts, so if you have a project within the district, you're automatically approved to do something, or does it still require an individual project within a district to go to their town meeting floor for approval?
What happens in Burlington is that the plan development district is approved at town meeting. Once the project begins to be developed or constructed, or there's changes to it, then the site plan stuff goes to the planning board. And then the way they do it, and we would maybe do it different in Danvers, is that they were doing some special permits for some specific uses in Burlington. I'm not sure if that's something that we want to do in Danvers, but after town meeting, there often majority or significant number of projects would still end up going to the planning board even after going to town meeting for approvals of some type.
Yeah, so I think to answer your question, I think is what you're getting at, John, was they don't have to go back to town meeting for every building that would be built. If you go forward,
Yeah,
it's really a petition for a list of uses, what you want to do, and then a concept plan. And say you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Unless something drastically changes and those uses are no longer viable for you, you wouldn't have to then circle back with town meeting every time. It would just be site plan review.
Yeah,
So is that what we're thinking about, David? I mean, because I'm familiar with the Norbloom company. I mean, they a huge developer in Burlington and big both residential as well as office use. So if they had in their case, I just want to try to understand what Danvers is proposing, that if that district was approved for a general office use of multifamily and there was an opportunity to build that section out, that gets approved. First, if the plan development gets approved by town meeting, and then the individual project itself or the individual building would come back for site plan approval to the planning board?
That's correct. Yeah, it would be to the planning board. And I think Tori actually pointed this out last time, in that you may have 5 or 6 or 7 years between first shovel in the ground till you start on the second phase.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to go back to town meeting as long as the uses and everything were approved previously.
Yeah.
But it would be back to the planning board just for review.
Okay. Got it.
And at that point, I think as Attorney McCann even pointed out last time, that's when you'd see the drainage calculations and where all the stormwater infrastructure is going to go and where the full layout will be. The concept plan is really just to give you some schematics of saying, clearly there's a water or sewer main in the road that the property abuts. We're going to run lines to the development, but it's not going to be the full scale engineered plan.
Okay.
So the upfront cost would be less.
And the intent is to have a more streamlined approval process for the developer or the applicant.
Yes, that's the intent. And I think also, at least in terms of, start of stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 of the permitting process, it would be more predictable. Albeit, we have heard from the finance committee as well, if it's going to town meeting, you don't really know what 170 people are thinking before you get there. So that's certainly out there, and we are cognizant of that. But at least what you're supposed to be doing for the applicant is laid out in a book, and they can kind of go through the process.
So what's the argument against minimal size, right? I mean, again, many of us actually who are planning board members are also town meeting members, and it is a different process. I mean, obviously, the concept of trying to make sure that big developments have a say at the town meeting floor makes sense. I get that.
Sure.
But do they really want to be involved in small stuff? I mean, so, I didn't get the benefit of listening to what the finance committee said, but it seems to me, I mean, Jim brought this up at the last meeting, that a certain size parcel makes sense from a planning perspective.
Sure. Yeah, no, I don't think I don't have a compelling argument against a minimum lot size. I think, like we said, we're starting broad. We're going to open it up to everybody. If we hone in on something that works for the groups involved, that's fine. I referenced earlier C3. It's kind of our larger commercial zone. A lot of the commercial zones surprisingly don't have a minimum lot size, or the industrial zones. So if we pick something like C3, that's 40,000 square feet. Highway corridors 1 acre, which nearest makes no difference. It's about 3,000 square feet off. So around that area is what's currently in your existing dimensional table.
Okay. Jim, questions?
No, I don't have any questions, Sean, at this point.
Okay, Lou?
Yeah, just a question, just in terms of, I saw the, the examples from Burlington. I know that I think it's 90 Middlesex Turnpike, I think is one where, and I think one of the things you included with the use tables, that are included as an appendix. So does that sort of cover the situations that might arise where certain things are, certain uses within that plan are allowed as a matter of right?
That's correct. The petitioner, the applicant, it's very similar to an ask for a zoning change now in that, except in this case, the applicant or petitioner is developing the use table.
Mm-hmm.
So, say you needed laboratory with light manufacturing and some R&D facility, you could write that in there, which currently I don't believe we allow all those things to happen all at the same time. I'd have to check the industrial districts, but something like that, it would allow for those types of uses to mix.
And sort of how is the process? I mean, in terms of the process, this may be something that Josh could weigh in. I mean, in terms of Burlington, how's the process been in terms of just, I guess, for lack of a better word, ease in terms of, and sort of being able to walk, go through the process, compared to sort of the traditional way of doing things?
So from the aspect of the applicant or developer, or aspect of the town, or who?
I'd say both.
Yeah, I mean, like David alluded to, it does kind of give you a guide, right? To if you own a piece of property or a parcel or properties, and you're trying to do something that the town probably would be favorable to, but having like a 2-year conversation about the zoning bylaw and changing it might be a difficult conversation. So it allows some flexibility in that you can be creative and kind of create zoning that kind of fits what you're trying to do for this particular parcel. So from a applicant or developer standpoint, I think it definitely provides some flexibility, and you can kind of do it in a decent amount of time, right? A decent time frame. It would just be one town meeting. We at least meet once a year. At least with zoning, and Danvers would probably, at least with zoning, would we at least be able to talk about it once a year. I mean, from the process from the town, I mean, obviously different people have different opinions on that and everything, but it is a decent hurdle, right? So the community does have to be at 2/3 at town meeting. The community does have to be sort of behind or in favor of it, right? So from that side of the table, you kind of get a feel for it, right? In settings like this, you'd gotta get a understanding. Does the community's planning board, do the elected officials, do they have strong, positive or negative feelings about it? And if you feel like things are kind of going in a positive direction, I think it's another just kind of tool in the toolbox, right? To try and do a project that could be unique or very, specific to a particular parcel or property that, might not fit that, you go on our use table right now and you want to do something a little bit creative. Zoning isn't necessarily creative in nature. So I think that this kind of provides that opportunity.
I think
if that sort of answers your question, Lou.
I think also for what it's worth, Lou, I did not work in Burlington, but I used to work in the town of Lexington. We did have planned developments, and if you're familiar with the old Raytheon site along 128 that was redeveloped by, it was Shire, now it's Takeda, but it's Shire Pharmaceuticals. That went through the PD process. They were successful and were able to build out that campus. Additionally, the developer King Street Properties went through the same process and was able to build some of the only speculative lab space that's come online fairly recently through this process. So those are two examples that I'm familiar with more so than
Did Lexington have a size? Did Lexington have a threshold with respect to size?
They do not.
Because one thing I was wondering, just in terms of a threshold, because they, as part of this whole package, as part of in the administration section, we would have use variances would be eliminated. Is that correct?
That is the idea, yeah.
So if you had if you ended up with a size, threshold for planned developments, would that potentially then affect if you had elimination of use variances, could you have then a smaller landholder, they would need to go to town meeting, is that correct?
You could, yeah, you'd have to go to town meeting to petition for either a change of zone or a zone that you fabricate yourself, yeah, if there were a minimum threshold.
If there were, okay. Okay, thanks. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Jean?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, anyone from the public want to comment on this particular? Go ahead, Attorney McCann. I see your hand got raised. I love this technology. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful? I just have some questions because I really want to understand this. We're going to, the idea is getting rid of use variances. And if we, I'm just going to ask some general questions, maybe not in the right order. If we get rid of use variances and we don't have a minimum lot area, how is this not spot zoning? If I had a 10,000 square foot lot that I want to put a use that's not permitted under the bylaw, I can't go for a use variance. So I now have to go through this plan development process at town meeting. And let's say I'm successful. So I have rezoned my 10,000 square foot parcel into a zone that I've made up. How is that not spot zoning?
Sure, I think we've kicked this around quite a bit last year, the year before, pretty much every time we come. So many court cases, and I can send the board these citations if we'd like. Contract zoning is no longer a thing in Massachusetts unless somebody directly is giving a bribe to somebody, and that can be shown, given the fact that any of these developments, these petitions have to be voted on by over 170 people in a public forum. It's therefore not contract zoning. But I can send those cases out.
Yeah. And is there, I think on the flow chart, Mr. Fields, that you put up before, there was a timeline for this process, like 135 days. Is that still what you're looking at? To get to town meeting?
That was the initial proposal. We can revisit that. I've had some input from other boards that may be extended. I don't have strong feelings if it were. That was just the original proposal.
Again, for bigger developments, I think what Josh said a few minutes ago about once a year at town meeting would look at this once a year. For a bigger development, a 1-year timeline might be palatable. I will tell you, for most of my developer clients, they would not be happy with that kind of idea, but as a practical matter, sometimes big developments do expand. But if, again, thinking about my 10,000 square foot lot owner, looking at the process is going to take a year, but that will be difficult to take. Understanding that the flip side is if you get rid of use variances, they wouldn't have any option at all. So maybe, there's some pros and cons here, but understanding the process and really thinking through this is important, because if I can see town meeting and having 5, 6, 7 of these coming up as certainly in the early stages for people who are saying, oh my goodness, I can't get a use variance now, I got to go to town meeting. Is town meeting going to be able to handle that demand from a timing standpoint, and to listen to a proposal, You know how long, very well, you know how long it takes to put together and to present on town meeting floor a proposal to change the zoning for a specific type of development with specific uses. What if there were many of these that came, but you know, that were filed? Is town meeting going to meet more than once a year on zoning matters? And if they are willing to have a special town meeting, who pays for the special town meeting? Is that going to be, I've heard the number thrown about in Danvers that a special town meeting costs $10,000 to put together. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but that's one I've heard put out there. Who would have to pay for a calling of a special town meeting? It's interesting. And I understand if you're doing away with use variances, this gives an option. But I'm wondering, from a practical standpoint, looking at how I'm going to explain it to a developer, how it's going to work and what the time frame is going to be.
Can always kick them to us. We can explain it to them.
Yeah, but explain it to me. Explain it to me. How's it going to work?
Well, I think
I like the idea that site plan would be afterward. That was kind of something that came out of our last meeting. That makes total sense because of all the reasons we said at that meeting. But
yeah, I think and I know what Josh was saying earlier. We envisioned the process that, it wouldn't be a once a year type of thing. If one of these was ended up tacked on to annual, we could discuss that. There's been talk of, we can have a special town meeting within the town meeting. They could meet more than once a year. That's the case for these. It's going to be a learning curve for the meeting members, that's for sure. There's really no way around that, but it goes pretty smoothly from our past experience, to be honest with you. Once things get rolling, the first one I would imagine would be kind of rocky. That's going to take the most staff bandwidth and the most wrangling to get through, but like I said, after that they generally go fairly smoothly. To your point about cost, I don't have certainly a nailed down cost on what it would take to pull off a special town meeting or any town meeting for that matter. There obviously will be a fee structure associated with these. I do not think it's going to cover the full cost of hosting the town meeting. However, the argument there is clearly whatever project you're doing is probably something of a scale the benefits to the town will supersede and offset any cost incurred.
And again, I think for a bigger project, yes. But if we're talking, if there isn't a minimum size and we're talking about somebody with a 10,000 square foot lot, it may not, and who would bear that cost? So it's interesting.
And like I said, totally minimum size. It's not off the table or not even open for discussion. We can discuss whatever we'd like.
And my last point is, I think, as you just touched on, Mr. Fields, it would be a definite learning curve for town meeting members to be faced with really looking at a plan, not in as great a detail, but certainly along the lines of what the planning board members who are educated to do that do on a regular basis. Tackling that and needing a 2/3 vote is
not always.
I know if it's a residential, no, maybe not. Maybe it's only half, but for most commercial developments, we're going to need a 2/3 vote, right? So
sure.
It's that in and of itself will be scary for developers, but if it's the only option, that if use variances are no longer on the table, then this provides a mechanism, but it will take a lot of education, I would think, of town meeting members and a lot of dedication to really review this stuff and to understand it, to give the developer a fair shake on the town meeting floor. So interesting.
I think that's true. I think too, part of it will be a lot of an outreach effort from my office, and then also, as you've seen from other projects, the developer as well. I mean, it's not. We've seen quite a bit recently, community meetings held by developers going forward. So I think that'll just be something that's part and parcel of the whole process for them.
Interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. So I think I got lost here along the way. So this packet that I have, it has a cover sheet that says use variances. Then it has a couple of pages about Plan Development Review Committee, and then it has section 2 where 2.11 use variances is crossed out. So what's actually in play for this warrant article? Is it just to eliminate 2.11?
For what would actually be inserted into the zoning bylaw itself, it would be a change to the section 2, as you pointed out, and then the insertion of a new section. And that's it. The committee charge was really just to provide it to show you, as an example of what we were talking about and how the process might go. That wouldn't actually make it into a zoning bylaw.
So this Plan Development Review Committee, is it just kind of an idea, a concept, or is it something that's going to come to fruition?
I mean, it's certainly something that would come to fruition unless I hear otherwise from a board that we're going to. But it's a committee charge, much like any other board, commission, or committee that we have. It doesn't get codified as such.
Okay, so today use variances, they can be used for a number of different purposes. We saw one recently for the Hot Lot or the Maple Square project, but so use variances wouldn't be allowed in any zone? Is that what?
They're currently not allowed in any residential zone. They would just be eliminated going forward.
So it, much like most communities in eastern Massachusetts don't use these. Okay, so would there be increased traffic to ZBA to kind of get some kind of relief without the where use variances are allowed today and they're eliminated? What is the relief that an applicant can seek to get around that? Or is it that's the whole purpose, is to prevent it?
Yeah, I mean, I think wholesale, what the overall scheme is, and we were not there yet because this is the nascent stage of it, but we would need to go back and look through our past permitting and then completely revisit the use table, which is more of a part of a recodification project, which we would like to undertake with outside help, because just from bandwidth purposes, to see what's been permitted and then go through that list and probably end up allowing quite a number of other things by special permit. We don't actually do a lot of special permitting in this town, so that certainly would be one way to rectify. It's not going from an X to a P, which can sometimes be scary. It would still be a discretionary permit, but I think we need to go through the table and figure out what exactly it is that should be allowed, more or less, if nothing else, based on past permitting practice.
Yeah, and then just to Attorney McCann's point about educating town meetings, so that is a challenge, right? And I think when things get complicated, and this is not any with all due respect to town meeting members, that I think sometimes the way that some of this material is presented to them, it makes their eyes glaze over. So we want to, I know you have a workshop scheduled.
Yep.
For the 13th, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout for that. The Plan Development Review Committee, that sounds like it would be useful. You'd get different folks in the same room working together. Today, it's kind of a serial process where, you kind of go from board to board to kind of present your material multiple times. So maybe this will kind of make that a little bit more convenient. So, all right, well, I think that's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just sensitive to the time. It's 9:30. We've been at it for 2.5 hours, right? So, but maybe the last one we talk about tonight, and then we still have another meeting, is the which one? The multifamily dwelling unit conversion.
Sure.
There seems to be a lot of concerns with this particular this particular concept. So why don't you just kind of give an overview, David, of what we're trying to accomplish here, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Sure. As I mentioned at the top, both of these things spun out of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've got feedback from them and several of the other boards. I don't think the dwelling conversion article is ready to go forward. There's a second article to that. It sounds very similar. It's actually a different practice, but it's multifamily. It allows multifamily units in the R1 district. The recommendation there, we started broad in scope, probably going to walk that back a little bit, and I can get something in writing to this board as well to remain single family and two family on those lines in the use table and dimensional tables for the R1 zone, and simply just eliminate the multifamily provision in that line, on those two lines actually. So I don't have the updated tables for you. Again, we met Thursday night with the Finance Committee, and then we're here tonight, but I can update those and get them out to this board.
Okay. So last thing then, David, given all these articles and the feedback that you've been getting from various boards, different people in the community, which one would be the next controversial one? I mean, the last year's stuff was, for the most part, are administrative changes, right, of how we do business.
Correct.
Not
Yeah.
a controversy, but some of these, I just want to make sure we vet it appropriately.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I think with the changes to civic space, I think a lot of the discussion around that has changed. I don't think anyone has had any problems with the government land being zoned something else. And again, the dwelling conversion was another hot one that, again, it's clear it's just not ready. So I think we can continue to have more discussions around plan development. I don't know that one's controversial, but certainly can be a head scratcher for some folks. So we can continue to talk about that. But in terms of the new articles, outdoor storage containers are pretty straightforward. I think I haven't really, once I explained those, I haven't really received any other questions on them. Floodplain, as I explained, it's more of a FEMA's telling us to adopt this, so we are, or at least proposing to. And then the inclusionary zoning, we haven't touched on quite a bit, but I think I had mentioned it was spurned out of the Affordable Housing Trust wanted to rewrite their section of the bylaw, and so that's kind of where we're at. By their section, I mean the section that I believe was originally proposed by them and to be written by them.
So, just going back to the plan development, I just think if the objective of the town is to streamline, make it more effective for the development team, it's all about execution, right? Once it's within the town, within its own control, the town meeting, well, obviously the town meeting members really understand what, they're going to have to come up to speed on a lot of stuff. So I think the execution is more than anything else. I mean, the concept makes sense as long as the community can execute. With, I would assume, an eye towards, this is more for the select board than the planning board, with an eye towards generating revenue for the community, like tax revenue on these bigger projects. So I think, we can continue on that. Any other questions, Jim, Lou, Gene, for tonight? I know it's been a long time.
John, on that line, if I could, I had to pick up someone from the airport, so I just had a couple quick points. On the city civic space, again, I'm glad they have removed the charity nonprofit part of that, because I didn't think that was a good idea. I didn't think there was enough planning or time involved, and I don't think we should force, those owners to go through a restricted process through town meeting. I don't think zoning through town meeting is the way to go. Town meetings are expensive. They cost the taxpayers money. We have a board that's designed to handle these things and handle, nonprofit space, just like we did when Danvers State Hospital finally closed, and we got that put on the tax rolls through Avalon. And it was before, David and Josh were here, but I think the planning board did an excellent job of, rezoning that and the use that's been up there. So that was a big example of a space that they would want to bring to the town for the town to have this additional review, which I think is not needed. So I'm glad that that's been tabled. On the plan unit development, I'm not sure we're ready for that. We don't have a lot of definitive information on that. We have, we don't have a lot of clarity on that. again, forcing an applicant to go through town meeting to do zoning, I don't think that's the way to go. I'm not in favor of that. The other provision that was kind of buried in here is the provision, I think that, David, you wouldn't be the zoning enforcement officer. Is that the change that's kind of buried in those administrative provisions?
We would set it up like a two-stage enforcement office. So the building commissioner would retain all of its authority in that office as well. The zoning administrator, which is in MGL 40A Section 13, would also have enforcement capabilities. Right now, it's unnamed right now. It would be me for the time being. It does not need to remain me.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about separation of powers and checks and balances. If you have the same person who's writing the legislation is also enforcing it and sitting on the board that is arbitrating it, it seems like it's a lot of power contained in one individual. Again, we've never done that. The building inspector's role has always been separate and distinct in the sense that he was the zoning enforcement officer. So I just need to understand what the motivation is. I know we've gone through a lot of changes in town hall. I know we've lost a lot of good people, which is unfortunate, I think. So I don't want you to be overburdened with what you're doing. In addition to, just what is the motivation to carve out that additional role for you if the building inspector is going to maintain that same decision making? Why do we need another person? You know what I mean? It doesn't. I think you have to explain that to people because, as I said, there's been a lot of change in town hall. I mean, I probably know about 10 people that no longer work there, and I think that's significant in the leadership, and management of the town and its various, divisions and people, trying to build in this town, people trying to develop in this town. It's a change, and I understand that, there's attrition and there's also, other reasons for it. But I just want to be comfortable that, this decision doesn't kind of monopolize all that authority and power into one office or one individual. So that's just my thoughts on that, John. I think maybe we can vet that out a little bit at the next meeting. Yeah. My final thing on the, just back to last meeting, we had Simon in here for that that proposed supermarket, and they promised to fix the roadways where my office is located on Federal Street. I think they put about a gallon of pavement patch down in a couple of holes, but the work that they did, I hope, Josh or yourself can review it, but it is not satisfactory toward fulfilling that obligation. The streets are horrible, and they continue to be horrible, and they're only going to get worse in the next 6 months of winter. So if we could try to enforce that, I think the whole town would be appreciative, because I think the town got blamed for it, even though it's a private road, but it definitely needs to be improved. So
just to make, Jim, through the chair, just one comment on that. I was on a series of emails with the Simon folks. David, I'm not sure if you were, the Simon folks working with the town engineer, Stephen King's office, about improving that ring road and what level that road needed to come to. I'm not sure, David, if you have any other comments on it, but I do believe that Simon has been in contact with the engineering office and what needs to happen. So just as a side comment on that item.
I think we're pushing back. They got the message that some of it's going to be a mill and pave and not so much just a base coat patch with some hole filler. So
yeah,
we're on top of it.
Okay, I got to pick someone up from the airport, John, but I got to run.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Blue Jean, you all set?
Okay for now. Okay for now. Thank you.
Does it make sense that we adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, you had get your hand up.
I do. I just want to ask one quick question. I'm not clear on the multifamily change. Is the only change regarding multifamily to eliminate multifamily from the R1 zoning district? Or is it looks to me like multifamily is being eliminated from other districts as well?
It's only allowed in R1 at now. We did have a change. I can get into this as much or as little as we want. I can try to do it quickly. Currently in the book, we do not have, we have a definition for multiple family. There's nothing actually for multifamily. So we have a multifamily line in the table with it not being defined and it mentioned throughout the book in multiple different ways. So if nothing else, we should be changing the table from multifamily to multiple family. That was more of a typographical thing. The current change, if you are following it through the lines, it's currently in R1. That would be proposed to be struck. It would remain in R1A, R2A.
It's going to stay in, it's going to stay in R1A and R2A. I had gotten something off the website that looked to me like multifamily. Oh, you're multifamily is being struck from R1, R1A, and R2A, and you're changing it to this new phrase, multiple family.
Right.
And that's going to be allowed in R1A and R2A.
Right.
And is multiple family multifamily?
Pretty much it's the same exact thing. We just never call it that in the book. The book says multiple family, but the table says multifamily. So if you went hunting for, well, what is the multifamily? It's not called multifamily in the book. It's called multiple family.
Okay. I've never used the term multiple family, but okay.
I haven't either.
All right. So multiple as in more than or 3 or more units will be permitted in R1A and R2A.
Yep.
But not in R1.
That's
the proposal.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other comments? Okay, if not, Josh, and David, since we got one more meeting right before the special town meeting, if
Sure.
whatever you guys can get, that's going to be finalized of what we're going to be looking at, so that we can prepare recommendations for the next meeting, that'd be great.
Yes.
I know you guys got a lot on your plate, but sooner rather than later would be helpful. So.
We can work on that.
Great, appreciate it. All right, given that, is there a motion to adjourn with tonight?
John, just one comment, or sorry, not to interrupt. There were a series of minutes that were sent out. I know.
Is it possible
we don't have enough.
Wait to that next meeting, since we got a lot of people who aren't here?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just that's.
I saw that.
I'm hearing the message. Yep, it's fine.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, motion to adjourn second, all in favor? Great. Good night, everybody.